The deep space around the research ship aperture was silent, endless, and filled with a soft golden haze that reflected against the hull. The crew had seen strange things before. Dying stars, broken moons, and worlds that breathed mist, but none of it was like what stood before them now. A glowing ring floated across the void, a perfect circle of crystalline light wider than entire planets. They called it the Lattice. No one really knew who built it. It had been discovered by explorers centuries ago, and ever since then many species had visited it only to look from a distance. The Lattice had a rule. It was written in thousands of languages, glowing faintly across its rim. Look as much as you want, human. Just know there are consequences for getting too close. Every species respected that warning. Every species except maybe one. Humans were different. Curiosity was part of them, a piece of their nature they could never quiet down. Dr. Amira Hossein stood on the observation deck staring at the Lattice. Her hands rested on the cool glass and her dark eyes were filled with wonder. She had spent her life studying alien cultures, trying to understand how knowledge changed minds. Now she faced something that seemed to be alive yet silent, like a secret waiting to be told. Captain Reyes stood beside her. "The Kale sent another message," he said. "They say the Lattice is safe for distant viewing only. The last species that went closer never came back quite the same." Amira nodded slowly. "And yet they didn't die," she said. "They just changed," Reyes sighed. "That's what worries me." Amira smiled, soft but determined.
"Change isn't always bad, Captain."
"It's how we grow." Behind them, engineers and scientists worked at their stations. The hum of machines filled the air, mixing with the faint pulse of energy coming from the Lattice. The ship's crew wasn't large, only 30 people, but they came from different corners of Earth and beyond. There was Ilya, a quiet mechanic from the moon colonies who could fix anything with scraps and tape. There was Marin, the medic who hummed old Earth songs when she worked. And there was Kale, a xenolinguist who spent his nights trying to translate the Lattice's pulse patterns into words. Everyone was fascinated by the ring. It wasn't just an object, it was a mystery that promised understanding. When the Lattice activated, it showed visions. Whole worlds shimmered in its light, oceans of silver water, cities that floated in clouds, and beings made of pure sound. It was like a window into other realities. You could look, study, and learn, but only from a distance. Amira watched the images shift across the surface of the Lattice. "We've always looked from afar," she said softly, "but we're missing something. Every other species that used it treated it like a museum exhibit. We treat it like a living being. We connect, we feel. Maybe that's what it wants." Reyes gave her a long look. "You think it wants us to come closer?" "I think it's waiting for someone brave enough to try," she replied. The next day, Amira called a meeting in the main lab. The air was thick with tension. A hologram of the Lattice floated above the table, slowly rotating. The Kale, the alien caretakers who guarded it, had joined the call through a projection. Their forms shimmered, a tall figure made of light and thin patterns that moved like water. "Human observers," the Kale voice said, calm and patient, "you have been granted permission to study the Lattice from your current distance. Do not cross the limit. Those who approach closer lose themselves. Observation alters the observer," Amira stood. "We understand the risks," she said. "But human learning doesn't stop with watching. We learn by feeling, by touching, by testing. The Lattice may react differently to us. Please, let us run a controlled close proximity test." The Kale's light dimmed as if in thought. "You are bold, as humans often are," it said. "But boldness has a price. If you cross that boundary, you must face the consequences alone." The communication faded, leaving the humans staring at the quiet hologram. Captain Reyes looked around the table. "All right," he said, "we vote. We either stay at safe distance or we go closer. Whatever happens, we do it together." The crew voted. 20 out of 30 raised their hands for Amira's plan. The result was clear. Humanity's curiosity had won again. Preparations began at once. The ship's engineers built a sensory adapter, a delicate framework of sensors and neural filters, to help human eyes and minds interpret the data. The Lattice's light wasn't normal light. It carried impressions, emotions, even fragments of memories. Without filters, it could overwhelm the human brain. Amira watched as Ilya worked on the adapter. He held up a thin metal frame with wires spreading like veins. "It's like building sunglasses for the soul," he joked. She smiled at the phrase. When everything was ready, they began the first close approach. The aperture glided forward, engines whispering. The golden haze grew brighter, and the hum in the ship deepened until it felt like a heartbeat in the walls. The lattice filled every window, a shining curve of crystal that seemed to breathe. Amira stood at the main console, her pulse racing. "Activate the adapter," she ordered. Lights dimmed. The adapter came online, projecting soft streams of color that floated through the air. Slowly, the lattice's surface opened like an eye. At first, they saw distant worlds, planets with two suns, jungles filled with glowing plants, rivers of blue fire. But then the images shifted. They saw people, real beings. Some looked almost human. Others were strange but beautiful. They worked, sang, built, and dreamed. It was like seeing 1,000 stories at once. The crew gasped. Kale's voice trembled as he whispered, "It's alive. It's showing us lives." Real moments, but as the visions continued, Amira noticed something else. The images began to feel personal. She saw a small girl with dark hair chasing a paper kite under two moons. Somehow Amira felt she knew her. She felt the wind on her face, the laughter, the warmth of sunlight that wasn't her own. Her hands shook. "It's connecting to us," she murmured. The others felt it too. Marin wiped her eyes. "I felt someone's hope," she said quietly. "Like it was mine." Captain Reyes called for a halt. "Shut down the adapter. Now." The lights blinked and the visions faded. The crew stood silent, their hearts still echoing with borrowed memories. Amira turned slowly to the captain. "It wasn't just showing us pictures," she said. "It shared emotions. It wanted us to feel them." Reyes looked uneasy. "That's exactly what scares me." That night, Amira couldn't sleep. She sat by the window of her small cabin, watching the glow of the lattice outside. It pulsed softly, almost like breathing. The warning replayed in her mind. "Look as much as you want, but know there are consequences for getting too close." She wondered what those consequences really were. Was it danger or understanding? The next morning, she gathered her notes and walked to the lab. Some crew members avoided her eyes. Others nodded with silent curiosity. They had all felt something powerful. They wanted to know more. Kyle met her halfway down the corridor. "Doctor," he said quietly, "the data from last night, it's strange. The lattice wasn't just reacting to our sensors. It was syncing with our brainwaves. It learned from us." Amira's heart quickened. "Then it's not just a machine. It's intelligent. Maybe more than that," Kyle said. "It might be alive in a way we don't understand." Before Amira could reply, the ship trembled softly. A low hum passed through the hull, gentle but deliberate, like a heartbeat answering another. Lights flickered. The lattice was sending a signal. Every screen on the bridge lit up with the same words written in pure golden light. "You have looked, humans. You have felt. Will you still come closer?" The crew stared in stunned silence. Amira smiled faintly, awe shining in her eyes. "It's talking to us," she whispered. "It wants to see what we'll do next." Captain Reyes rubbed his forehead, torn between fear and fascination. "You realize," he said slowly, "this might be the moment we stop being just observers." Amira looked at the glowing ring outside. "Or the moment we finally learn what it means to truly see." The lattice pulsed again, soft and patient, waiting. And somewhere deep inside the aperture, every human heart beat in time with it. They didn't know what the consequences would be, but for humanity, curiosity was never just a habit, it was a promise. The day dawned slowly over the endless void, but inside the aperture the air felt electric. The lattice pulsed softly in the distance, a constant reminder that humanity was standing at the edge of something vast and unknown. The warning had been clear, yet the crew could not resist. Curiosity burned brighter than fear. Dr. Amira Hossein walked through the corridors, checking on her team. Engineers were adjusting the sensory adapters, making them more sensitive but also more stable. Marin, the medic, hummed quietly as she organized the crew's schedules, a calming presence amid the excitement. Ilya, the mechanic, was tinkering with small probes, insisting that they might need a human touch on any equipment the lattice influenced. Kyle, the xenolinguist, approached Amira with a small device in hand. "I think I can predict how the lattice will react to our emotions," he said. "It's almost like it mirrors our minds. If we stay calm and curious, it gives us knowledge. If we panic or force it, well, I don't think it will respond kindly." Amira nodded. "Then we need focus. Humanity has always been good at turning danger into learning. Let's make sure we do it the right way. By mid-morning, the crew was ready. They moved into the observation deck, each person wearing the sensory adapter. The aperture moved closer to the lattice, engines quiet, almost as if it too understood the delicacy of the moment. As they approached, the golden glow grew stronger. It was no longer just light, it seemed alive, stretching and flowing like liquid sunlight. When they reached the designated distance, Amira activated the adapters. Images flowed through the ship like rivers of color and motion. At first, they were distant scenes, cities suspended in clouds, creatures walking under twin moons, oceans that sparkled like diamonds. But as they focused, the images sharpened, details filling in like a story being written in real time. Amira felt the pull immediately. She could feel emotions from the beings they observed: joy, fear, curiosity, and care. Each crew member reacted differently. Some held their heads, overwhelmed by the flood of impressions. Others, like Ilya, leaned forward, fascinated, taking notes and sketching ideas in his pad. "It's more than observation," Marin said softly. "It's connection. We're not just seeing, we're feeling their lives." The lattice seemed to respond to the humans' reactions. Images of cooperation, problem-solving, and creativity expanded, filling the deck with light. The crew saw entire worlds being built and rebuilt, communities teaching each other, learning from mistakes, helping each other survive. It was a mirror of what humanity could do, amplified, yet the deeper they looked, the more intense it became. Some crew members experienced memories not their own. Amira saw the moment a small alien child first learned to fly a mechanical glider, and she felt the excitement and fear, as if it were hers. She gasped, feeling her own pulse quicken. "Careful," Kyle warned. "It's starting to blur lines. If we let it, it could overwhelm us." But the human instinct to explore, to connect, was stronger than fear. Amira spoke aloud, her voice calm, guiding the crew. "We are here to learn. We are here to observe and understand, not to lose ourselves. Remember who we are." The lattice pulsed in response, slower now, as if listening. The vision shifted from distant cities to smaller, intimate moments. Hands building tools, eyes lighting up at a solved puzzle, creatures helping each other across treacherous terrain. Humanity's empathy seemed to strengthen the images, making them clearer, more detailed, and more real. Then came the first real test. An alien community faced a sudden disaster. A bridge collapsed over a river of molten liquid, trapping several beings. The crew could see everything, the fear in their faces, the desperation in their movements. Without thinking, Amira instructed the team, "We can't interfere directly, but we can help them think of a solution." Using the adapters, the crew suggested ideas, guiding the beings' problem-solving indirectly. It worked. The alien community improvised tools, shifted materials, and rescued everyone safely. The crew cheered quietly, feeling a shared sense of achievement. Humanity had turned observation into action without violating the boundaries. "It's incredible," Marin whispered. "We can make a difference without touching. We're like teachers helping from a distance," but the lattice was not finished. Its pulse deepened, and suddenly, memories from multiple worlds flooded the crew. Some were pleasant, others painful. They felt loss, struggle, and joy from lives they had never lived. A few crew members became disoriented, unsure where their own memories ended and the observed lives began. Amira saw it first in Ilya. The mechanic was frozen, hands trembling over his pad. "Ilya," she called softly, "focus on your own heartbeat. Remember your life. We need you here." He blinked, nodded, and breathed deeply. Slowly he returned to reality. The others followed her guidance, grounding themselves with simple actions, touching their own hands, speaking aloud what they remembered of home, describing familiar objects. The lattice pulsed again, slower this time, almost as if approving. The crew realized the key. They could experience the lives of others, but they had to anchor themselves in their own humanity to remain whole. Amira turned to Kyle. "It's teaching us something. Observation is a gift, but we must honor our own identity. That's the consequence it warned about." Cal nodded. "Yes, if we forget ourselves, we lose control. But if we hold ourselves steady, we gain understanding beyond imagination." For hours, the humans worked with the lattice, learning, guiding, and observing. Each crew member found ways to stabilize themselves. Some recited old Earth poems, others hummed songs, and a few touched small objects from home. Even Captain Reyes joined in, holding a small metal charm his daughter had given him, feeling her courage and laughter as he watched the alien worlds unfold. By the time they stopped, the ship was silent except for the gentle hum of engines. The lattice pulsed once more, brighter than before, then dimmed as if content. The crew sat back, exhausted but exhilarated. Amira felt a new understanding. Humanity had always been brave, creative, and empathetic. That was why they could face something as powerful as the lattice and not be destroyed by it. Other species had looked and feared. Humans had looked and connected. Captain Reyes finally spoke. "I didn't think we could do it. We followed the rules and yet, we learned more than anyone else ever has," Amira smiled. "We respected the consequences. We didn't let curiosity destroy us. We let it guide us." The crew shared a quiet moment, realizing they had done something extraordinary. They had touched the lives of worlds they had never visited, guided beings they would never meet, and still returned to themselves. Humanity had found a way to turn observation into action, connection, and understanding. The lattice pulsed gently in response, like a heartbeat echoing theirs. It seemed to recognize that humans were not just observers. They were participants in the unfolding story of the universe, capable of empathy, creativity, and care. Amira looked at her team, proud and grateful. "This is only the beginning," she said. "We've learned how to see without losing ourselves. We've learned how to help without touching, and we've learned that curiosity, guided by care, can change everything." As the aperture drifted away from the lattice for the night, the golden glow faded into the distance. The crew rested, minds buzzing with images and memories that were not entirely their own, yet now felt familiar. They had faced the consequences and found strength in them. Amira lay in her small cabin, gazing out at the stars. Somewhere out there, other species were looking at the lattice, wondering about the humans who had gone closer, who had learned its secret without losing themselves. She thought of the next step, the next challenge, and the countless worlds that still waited for understanding. The lattice was no longer just a window. It was a mirror reflecting humanity back to itself, showing the best parts of who they were, curious, empathetic, and brave. And that reflection would guide them to the next discovery, the next chance to connect, and the next moment where humanity could truly shine in the vast universe. For the first time, humans understood the warning fully. There were consequences to getting too close, but they were not always negative. The consequence of closeness was responsibility, care, and a deeper understanding of life itself. Humanity was ready to face it, and as the aperture sailed into the dark, sparkling void, every heart aboard beat in rhythm with the lattice, a quiet promise that humans would continue to learn, to feel, and to grow.